Gold and Blue Dude here with you again. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I make videos every single day, sometimes multiple videos, depending on how active the day is or what kind of mood I'm in. So if you don't like this video, maybe you'll like one of my other videos. So I've been thinking, because of all these schedule changes, the college football playoffs are going to look much different than I originally thought. And I didn't make a video making predictions, but I had an idea of which direction I wanted to go. I actually had 3 locks and 1 floater per usual. But now I'm rethinking it, and I only actually have 1 lock that I think will make the playoffs, and that is Ohio State. They're loaded. That Big Ten schedule isn't too daunting. That Penn State game could be a little tricky, so maybe Penn State can pull the upset and they make the playoffs. But I'm sticking with Ohio State out of the Big Ten to take 1 of the slots. Now, the other 3 slots are going to be very, very, very interesting. I do think that the Big 12 will be the conference to get left out. I think the parity will be just a little too much this year. I think there's going to be some upsets we don't see coming, and Oklahoma isn't as strong as usual. They'll still probably win the conference, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a little more tough this year and fewer games. And you add in the fact of their track record, and I think the College Football Playoff Committee will take a second look and be like, maybe not, if Oklahoma doesn't go undefeated. Of course, if they go undefeated, they're getting in, but I don't think that will happen. The round robin and then playing in the Big 12 championship, they're going to have 1 loss. It's going to happen. So I think the Big 12 gets left out. The Pac-12 is very, very interesting. I think UCLA is up and coming, but they're not there yet. They're not. But Chip Kelly has this team back on the rise. So UCLA is coming back. It's not just this year. Pac-12 South, a little bit more weaker than usual. I don't think Utah is going to be as strong as they were last year. So I'm going to say either Oregon or Washington comes out of the Pac-12 and makes the playoffs. So I think the Pac-12 will take 1 slot. But I'm not 100% locked on that. And the reason is the other 2 conferences, the SEC and the ACC. Specifically, the ACC really interests me because of the decision they made bringing in Notre Dame, so they are, they're able to play in the ACC title game. They're eligible for that this year because they're counting Notre Dame as a conference game. So we have Clemson at Notre Dame, and then possibly another rematch in the ACC title of Clemson-Notre Dame. And then you have North Carolina and Miami. And I did have Miami winning the Coastal, but now that there's no divisions, then that's out the window, and now they have to go to Clemson. Sorry, Canes fan, that's a loss. So, I'm not going to pick Miami to go to college football playoffs. I do think they'll have a good season, and they do get North Carolina at home. I just don't think that, especially with that road game to Clemson now, I don't think they make it to the playoffs. Maybe not even the ACC title game. It could be a rematch of Notre Dame and Clemson. Here's the interesting thing. The ACC could pull what the SEC pulled off a few years ago, and that is get 2 teams in or get no teams in. Depending on how it played out, it could be Notre Dame and Clemson both play their way in if each other is their only loss, or they could knock each other out if one of them or both of them have another loss. So the ACC could potentially have 2 teams in or no teams in, and it all depends on how Notre Dame and Clemson do. And so that game in South Bend is one of the biggest games of the season. There were other games, but they got tossed out, like Ohio State and Oregon. That was my number 1 game. Not going to happen. So I'm going to bump Clemson and Notre Dame up to the number 1 spot. And then we have the SEC. They're in the same predicament. I think they could have 2 teams or no teams. It all depends on Alabama and Georgia. I think Georgia actually has a better shot of getting to the playoffs than Alabama. I think, a lot of people were high on Jake Fromm, but I didn't see it. The numbers he produced were great, but he didn't have that killer instinct. There was something missing And there was always a team that Georgia shouldn't have lost to that they did lose to. And last year, South Carolina. How did that happen? I don't know. But I think LSU takes a step back, so I don't think they're in the conversation. So Ohio State, lock, and either or Oregon or Washington possibly to get in. And then Clemson, Notre Dame, one, both, or neither one could get in. Then the SEC, Alabama and Georgia, one, both, or neither one of them get in. So those are the teams that I'm narrowing it down to. Ohio State for sure, then Washington, Oregon, Clemson, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Alabama. So that's 7 teams for 4 spots. Let's make that 3 spots. Let's take Ohio State out. 6 teams for 3 spots. So there's going to be a lot of parity in college football. So let's see how the season goes, this all-conference schedule, and the ACC still keeping that one game up to the ACC members. And like I've said before, maybe that will bring back the Backyard Brawl Pitt, West Virginia. That would be awesome. That's all I got for you today. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.